Hi, so I have something interesting for you all today. Recently, this past Friday, I was asked to be a part of ResolveCon. It was this whole day stream on Casey Ferris's channel. He organized the entire thing, bringing together a whole bunch of Resolve-focused channels on YouTube to one live stream to talk about Resolve, talk about what we were passionate about, and to answer questions from the community. The entire VOD for that event is still live on Casey's channel. I absolutely encourage you to go check it out. Tons of presenters, some really awesome stuff. I'm definitely looking on revisiting myself. Cool stuff. However, in the run-up to that event, I recorded a sort of dry run for my presentation, and that is what this video is going to be. It's just a extremely lightly edited take at the substance and content that I went over in that live stream. I do some things a little differently. I touch on some more areas, especially in some of the later animation. But primarily what I do is walk through my process of creating presets. We walk through one super simple example. And I know a lot of people have asked for that specifically. I have some stuff of that on a few different channels now, but not on this one. So this is going to live here on this channel, sort of showing off some of my presets and walking all of you through how to get started creating your own presets and templates in Resolve. I know it's a little longer video. I do touch on lots of different stuff, so be sure to check out the different chapters below and you can skip around if you need to. But there is really cool tips and tricks and stuff scattered throughout of it. I really try to pack it full of value for everyone. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. I'm gonna talk about something that I think might just be the most exciting thing inside DaVinci Resolve. I'm talking generally about Fusion macros. Now, as I get started, I have to really define and spell out what we're going to be talking about because I use macros not interchangeably, but when I talk about presets or templates and sometimes plugins, the way I'm working now, those are always almost always actually Fusion macros. Now, when Blackmagic added the Fusion page to DaVinci Resolve, for a little bit, it was just a separate page you could go to. You could always load up Fusion comps and work on them. But slowly but steadily, they started increasing the interplay between the edit page and the Fusion page. And that is very, very exciting. And you can see this in the included free presets in Resolve. If you are on a timeline and you just open up your effects library, underneath Toolbox, you will have titles, generators, text effects, and transitions, both video and audio. And each of these categories, effects, generators, titles, transitions, are a different classification that you can use when creating and using Fusion macros. The only distinction in that is that titles and generators function the same way. I'll show you. If I pull on a title, something like this, center reveal, and then I pull on a generator like this, just noise gradient, these just exist as standalone objects on a layer. But effects and transitions require existing footage on a timeline that you apply these effects to, or two clips back to back that you can apply the transition to. And that is the basic framework for effects on the edit page. But these effects can be Fusion compositions. And the scope of what's possible is pretty impressive. I've been diving into on my own channel, and it can automate a lot of processes. It can make things quicker. You can also make really powerful reactive macros, which is something I've dove into. So what we're going to do on this presentation is that we are going to build from scratch a generator in Fusion that you'll be able to use on the edit page, and you'll be able to customize this after the fact whenever you want to use it. What we are going to create is a very simple pop-up. For those who have YouTube channels, the YouTube logo is going to pop up, subscribe button underneath, and above that, we are going to have the current subscriber count. I've seen a few different channels do it, and it's always a little more effective when you see that they are updating that subscriber count almost with every video. You see that, oh, like they're involved with their graphics, they care about it. And it's another pull for that graphic. But first, I want to help you get a little bit of a wider view about Fusion macros. They can do some simple things. I have this tutorial cam preset, I call it. This is what I use on my tutorials, and it's currently applied to this effect. If I come over to effects, I can toggle that off. This is the video layer, and I just drag and drop my effect on it. It shrinks it down into the corner. You can reposition it, and you can do really simple things like simple masking. And again, this is masking. If you toggle on Fusion Overlay, then you have fine mask controls, both for the mask and the footage underneath it. Here I remapped footage to a 3D image plane that you can then do all sorts of cool stuff with. This is exciting. If the color page is intimidating to you, understandable. It's fairly intimidating to me. I took the color corrector node from the Fusion page, made it a Fusion macro, and then made that a standalone effect on the edit page. So I can drop this color corrector onto any clip and then do any of my simple, this looks bad, but that's okay. Do any of my simple color grading here completely on the edit page. Ugh. Again, all this is one Fusion node that you could do on any clip of footage or on any clip. You could take that clip, load it into Fusion, add a color corrector node. That'd be kind of funky, but this is a solution that allows you to stay completely on the edit page. We have that 3D image plane, stuff like 3D text, completely on the edit page. You can customize this. And here, this is exciting. I have my preset that I use for my YouTube end screen. This is a fairly complicated animation, not a complicated animation, but there are lots of things going on. So you can see it starts full screen and it scales down into the corner. And this is a drag and drop effect. Those are a host of fairly simple generators, effects, but in the rollout for Resolve 17, several things were expanded that allow presets to be much more reactive on the edit page. Here I have one of my presets. It's a progress bar preset. I dropped it fresh on here. Over the course of this clip, this progress bar just fills the bottom of the screen. Awesome, and you can change the color and all sorts of stuff. But if we just extend that clip, then that progress bar takes that new duration of the clip to execute that move. It's super cool, and the same logic is applied over here, where I have a super simple countdown. It's in this case a 6-7 second countdown, and as that counts down, the circle closes all the way around. But hey, I can extend this, and instead of a 6-second countdown, now it's a 16-17 second countdown. This is one generator, one preset. You drag and drop it and extend it. It has several different presets built in. I really like these bars. You have a little flippy thing with messages, customizable in the inspector, super cool. And then I have, finally, the last thing to sort of demonstrate the power of these macros is my Proto plugin here. If any of you, I'm guessing a lot or most of you are familiar with Video Copilot, Andrew Kramer. Of course, he's incredible, doing tons of stuff in After Effects for a really long time, and he has a super powerful Saber plugin. I wanted to take my shot at rebuilding that, so this is what I have done. It has some cool energy effects. This is a little wobbly purple. In the inspector, you have a whole bunch of presets here. A little fire, a little energy. Tons of options in the inspector, change it to all sorts of stuff. I want to real quick touch on one specific reason I think all of this is really cool. Yes, you can make lots of cool stuff. It's all drag and drop. It's super easy to use. But on any of these, I'm going to go into Proto, And if you click this button, it loads up the instance of that effect in the Fusion page. This is super cool. I can zoom in here and you see that entire effect is this little stacked node group here. If I double click on that, boom, you see all of this. And this is how I created all of these energy effects. And you can still hop around in the inspector here and things will change in these settings. But I created all of this from scratch in the Fusion page. And then I packaged it up. I said what controls I wanted the end user to have control over, and then I packaged it up some more and did things. I made a DRFX recently, but now this entire fairly complicated process is drag and drop for the end user, and one that's very cool. But because you can open it up in the Fusion page, that's super exciting because any end user, if they're excited or if they're interested in learning more about the Fusion page, they can open this up. They can open up any Fusion macro, including the free titles and effects that come in Resolve. I've done that before. Side note, up in effects library in the Fusion page, if you come down to templates, Fusion, you have more free presets and templates here that you can open up using projects. They have some really amazing radar effect that I've cracked open and learned a lot from. But this is a crazy valuable education resource. It's super cool, but you can go in and make even more customization options. Like everything is here for you to go and change or to learn from or to expand on. It's super exciting. We are not going to be going this ham today, thankfully, because that took a while. So we're going to try to keep it a little more manageable for this, but it's just super cool. This has had a lot of my focus for the last little bit on my channel because it's so exciting. It's what I'm all about. So I'm going to hop to a new timeline here. This is just a standard 1080-30 timeline. And we're going to start, again, creating a new preset, a generator that anyone can use. I'm going to follow along this preset. We're hopefully going to keep it pretty simple, but I'm excited. Now, Basics 101 of getting and using things in the Fusion page. If you have anything on the timeline, if you have footage or an image, then you can just like mouse over that and then open up the Fusion page and it will create a Fusion composition out of that. You can also drag a Fusion composition to your timeline, or if you have an entirely blank timeline, if you open the Fusion page, it will be blank. If you had anything like a simple background node, it will also create a media out, and then when you jump back to the edit page, you will have a nice little Fusion composition here. This is awesome. We're going to go back to the Fusion page, and let's talk about some Fusion basics. I know there are tons of people who have probably been using Resolve for a while, poking around here and there, and they probably have the least time spent in the Fusion page. It's intimidating. It's a lot. It's a completely new way of thinking. It's a node-based system. And so if you're coming from something like After Effects or just editing in Premiere or even on the edit page, it's a completely different way of thinking about things. I was in Premiere and After Effects for years before I transitioned, and I really didn't know what to do with the Fusion page for a long time. I had dabbled very briefly in school using Nuke, which is a node-based compositor, but I had never really gone deep. And my first instinct was like, okay, awesome, Fusion, node-based. I think node-based workflows work best in like compositing, special effects, if I need explosions and things tracked everywhere and stuff like that. And I do think that's still probably like the best case for it. But the general like motion graphics and animating and all these sort of graphic stuff, I've really come to love in Fusion. There are some perks and strengths of node-based compositing that I really like. And then on top of that, you take this really cool functionality to create anything on the Fusion page and save it for use for anyone on the edit page. And spoiler, I haven't gotten there yet, but any of these macros and anything you do in the Fusion page, if I take this background and I just like, hey, make this cool color. If I copy this and I pull up my notepad, I can paste this as plain text. And the final macros that we are going to be creating are just text files. So anyone can take this, I can copy this and paste it back in. And this is just pasting the code, which again, I paste from this node, but you can paste it back in. If you go to the official Blackmagic forums, a lot of troubleshooting happens through sending almost entire projects back and forth as these nodes. It's super cool. That's sort of its own separate talk, but that's okay. Let's get rolling. This background, I'm just going to make this. I'm going to pull down this alpha so it's a little see-through, and then I'm going to pull in a loader node. I am going to navigate to where I have a little folder selected, and I'm just going to pull in this PNG file that is the YouTube logo. Awesome. Now, like I said I was going to do a little earlier, really quick Fusion promo. You see we have two windows here, and I can pull anything up on either one of those windows by selecting a node and pressing 1 or 2. Here is something interesting though. If I take this YouTube logo, I'm going to take the square here, which is the output, connect it to this output of this background node. Now I'm going to select this background, press 1, we have this blank canvas, select the merge and press 2, you have the blank canvas, but now you have the logo because you are previewing that merge. When you preview in the signal chain is very important. A lot of, I'll see new Fusion editors and animators and all that pretty quickly being like, I'm changing these settings, nothing's changing in frame. It's fairly common that at the beginning you'll just be looking at the wrong part of the signal chain. But we can get moving here. Let's create some nifty assets. I'm going to create a new background. Let's again, this specter in the Fusion page as well. I want this color to be this YouTube red. Pull this up here, and that's good. It's very big. With this background node selected, if you click this rectangle mask tool, it will mask that. Masks are interesting because they are technically like before this background node in the signal path, but it's really this node is being acted upon by this mask. And you can mask almost anything, including effects. Super cool, super cool. I'm going to come into this rectangle, pull down this core, or pull up this corner radius, height. Yeah. I'm just going to bring this rectangle down a bit. And this is going to be our nice little subscribe button. So then I'm going to click this text node. This text will just be white. Subscribe. But again, connect the out to the out. That merges. Boom. Subscribe. The text coming down as well. Scale up. Great. And I'm going to zoom out. Some navigation. I'm holding the middle mouse button. If I hold the middle mouse button over any window, then I can just drag that around. Middle mouse button, left mouse button. If you click and drag, zoom in and out, again on any window. And awesome. So we got our subscribe. I'm going to take that into a merge. And a really cool bit is that these merge also contain really simple transform controls. So again, if I transform that furthest merge, we have this play button. We have the logo, and then we have the subscribe. I want the logo to be a little smaller. I can do that right in the merge. Pull down size. Scale this up a bit. Nice. And then let's see how this looks. I'm just going to create a white background. mask it. A really useful feature is this sort of thing. Again, I'm previewing this background here, but when you have any node selected, the controls for that node show on both view frames. So I'm not even, these aren't even connected yet in our node tree, but I'm able to position based on this second node tree. So let's see here. Let me bring this right up above. You know what, we'll actually scale that back after the fact. And then on this background node, I will add a merge for some little text. And hey, let's just make this black. Give it a nice little font we like. And I'm going to add 10,000. I recently hit 10,000 subscribers. If you're one of those subscribers, thank you very much. Preview this merge, awesome. Pull down this, I like this a lot. Text controls, And then I'm going to take this final white box here and pull it into this merge. And then I'm finally going to preview this media out. Okay, we have this super straightforward graphic here. We have designed a still graphic. Very cool. So let's talk animation. A really cool thing about node-based is that it sort of has like built-in compound clips, like you might use in some other softwares. Just to demonstrate, if I preview this merge, this is just this logo and subscribe button. If I had a transform node after the fact, I also pulled up this search tool or search for tool window by pressing shift space. I can add a transform node here, and then I'm still previewing this media out here. But if I go to this transform and change this center, it is changing the center for everything that was piped into transform. So two different objects, but because they are before this third object, you can control them both together. Great. So if I add a transform node after all of these together, then I can control this entire scene as one element. I'm going to go ahead. I know I'm going to want this to be much smaller. Let's try that out. Scale it down. I kind of like this center. It's like super like big and bold, but we'll see how it goes. That is great. And if we wanted to keep it super basic, what I would do is go to the beginning of my timeline. Again, in the inspector, make sure that transform node is selected. And on center, I'm going to click a keyframe, come forward a fair bit. Yeah. Forward a fair bit. Scroll this forward a fair bit. Set another keyframe. We haven't changed anything yet. But if I go back to that first keyframe, then I can pull this wide down and it will just slide off screen. And if you play that, boom, your graphic slides on screen. It looks bad. Do you know why it looks bad? It's because right now these are linear keyframes. Super boring. I already have my spline viewer open here. If you don't, you can come up here next to keyframes, click spline viewer. And an important setting here in spline viewer, these three dots, I currently have show only selected tool. This is off by default. I find that it helps me sort of stay focused, but I toggle it on and off as needed. But I have this on, so because I have that transform selected, I see here a visual representation of my animation. I have this whole design, and between these two icons where these keyframes are, it is moving this much. But you can select both these keyframes and just click F. And now, if you look at it visually, you can tell what's going to happen in the animation. Instead of hitting that keyframe and just like taking off like a rocket for the other keyframe, it's hitting that animation and it's just like bowing out a little bit. So now it just like has a little bit more of a smooth. And sort of, I'm gonna use my little cheat code for great motion. I selected both these keyframes and I pressed T to open up these easing controls. Now, this is animating in, so we want it to be really smooth when it lands. I'm gonna change this ease in I'm going to crank this all the way up to 70, and you can see reflected in that graph that pulls that line out, so it is really bowing towards that side. Ease out, I'm going to pull up a little bit closer to 50, and then if we play this animation, it has a much nicer, it's a little imbalanced with that 50 and 70, but I think it feels really nice. Awesome, awesome. If we wanted to add a little flare, even select that transform, come over to settings, toggle on motion blur, pull up the quality a little bit, 4 or 5. Then over that move, we even have a nice little motion blur. Cool, but we're not done the animation. We are gonna toggle this up, but I think we can get a little fancy with it. Now remember, this transform is moving everything that came before it, but we can still change everything that came before it. So we're gonna have it slide on, and you know what, right now let's just get our slide off as well. I'm gonna set another keyframe on center, go to the end, keyframe off, slide that off, select those keyframes, F to flatten, and here the emphasis is on moving out, so I'm gonna pull up our ease out to about 70, and ease into about 50. Awesome. Slides on, holds, slides off. But while it's on, there's more we can do. It's going to slide on, and we are going to mess with this subscribe button animation. I'm going to fake like a button click. I'm not going to create a cursor. I'm just going to have it scale down a little bit and change color. Ooh, and maybe have the text change as well. Cool. Let's add a transform node after this merge, so it's going to treat all of that together. And I am doing that because I have access to this pivot. If I scale in, our pivot is here, and I'm bringing down the pivot to the center of the subscribe button because at a certain point, I'm going to set a keyframe on size. I'm going to move forward 2 frames. I'm just going to scale this down a bit. Oh, again, hey, I wasn't doing it. I was previewing the merge. I want to preview the transform. Hey, it scales down a bit. And come forward and scale it back up to 1. I'm going to keep that a little linear, a little blocky. Cool. Now, from the click, I am going to come to this red background, keyframe this color, come forward to when it scales back up. And this background, I'm going to make this a nice gray because, hey, when you click subscribe, it becomes gray. I'm going to copy these values, paste them so it is perfectly gray, not green, gray, or something. Awesome. Great. So this will prompt people. They can go, you can subscribe, and then it'll just scale out. That is awesome. Now let's get to the fun stuff. We have all of these nodes. If you go back to the edit page, this will play back and it will look good. I will say the quick and fast way of doing what we're doing here is power bins. If I load up my power bins, I can create a new bin here. I'll call this demo. And power bins are a cross preset. If you drag anything in there, they stay there and you can reuse them or whatever. If I drag this fusion composition to a power bin, it stays there and it saves. And you can drag this into any future project. But as it currently sits, we have no control over this on the edit page. You would have to then load back into the Fusion page to change anything, which isn't too bad, but we can do some cool things. I'm going to go back to the Fusion page, and I'm going to select, I'm going to make sure I have these, these numbers selected. I'm going to select all of these nodes, right-click, and go to Macro, Create Macro. And this will pull up this prompt. This is a super cool prompt. I'm going to name this something like YouTube subscribe. And then I'm going to scroll down until I see text 2. This is the text with our subscriber count in there. I'm going to open that up. scroll down to text, and I'm just going to check styled text. Now we are keeping this simple. Next to styled text, we have this name. And when we pulled this up in our inspector for styled text, that was the prompt it gave us. That box you could type in was called styled text. But this is going to be what is going to show up as custom controls. So we can rename this subscriber count. Now, very exciting. I'm going to go to File, Save as Group. And save, it'll pull up this default menu, but you just need to save this to a location you know you can access it again. I'm going to go to my desktop where I have a presets test folder. I do lots of work in here. YouTube subscribe. We're going to save there. You can close out of this window. And real quick, I do need to touch on, again, the file we just saved. If I navigate there, it will be a .setting file. Presets, scroll over here, YouTube subscribe. If you double click on this, it will open up in Notepad, and this again is a text file. Awesome. But because it is .setting as well, Resolve and Fusion can recognize this entire folder. Remember when we copied and pasted nodes before? If I take this setting and just drag it into Fusion, it will paste all those nodes as a group, like what we sampled opening up presets before. If we double click this, hey, it has the node tree we just built. Awesome. But in order to get this to the edit page, there's two main ways you can do this. The first is the fairly new DRFX files. All my presets that I give away, that I have given away, are currently packaged up as DRFX files. There's a number of perks to those, but if you are creating your own, you really don't need to go all through all of that. Instead, in the Fusion page, I'm going to make sure my effects library is open. I'm going to come down to Templates, open Fusion, open effects rather, and again here we have those categories we looked at earlier: effects, generators, titles, transitions. We're going to go to generators, and here you have all the ones installed. But if you come up to these three dots, you go to menu, show folder, and that will bring up this folder where all of your custom presets here, if they're not saved as DRFX files, are living in this folder for edit for generators. So if I pull up presets, test this folder, and drag in that YouTube subscribe, here you have YouTube subscribe. And if I scroll down in generators now, here you have YouTube subscribe. It is a little iffy. Sometimes this requires a restart, so we'll see. I'm going to go to the edit page, and if I navigate to generators and scroll down, hey, it works. You have YouTube subscribe. So let's, just to demonstrate, I will make a completely new timeline and say, let me pull in something like, yeah, this like fake tutorial. I mean, it's from a real tutorial, but pull in the tutorial. So say I was, say I was working on this video, and I wanted this new logo that we just designed to pop up. I would just come down to generators, scroll down, and YouTube subscribe, drag that right onto my footage. I could play through, and you'll see it has generated this red bar over my footage. That is the Fusion cache. If you need to force it to cache, you can always come up to playback render cache. Make sure smart and none, you have smart user and none, you have some options there. You can also right click and go to render cache Fusion output on. If it doesn't work, sometimes auto depending on the effect, or some things doesn't always, but over time that should turn from red to blue, which means it's cached. So now if we play, we'll playback, that slides on, clicks from subscribe to subscribed, and then slide back off. Super cool. This is nice, it is clean, but hey, I have my inspector open, so you will already notice we have one field here that's just 10,000. So if you had this in your videos and you wanted to keep updating it as you grew, You wouldn't need to dive back into the Fusion page, even though you should dive into the Fusion page. It's very fun. You could just drag this on, come in here and update it to 10,001 or 20,000. If I were to design this again, I would definitely add an option, just like we checked that box to give the user this control. You could check boxes for any of the controls on any of the nodes. You could change the color of the subscribe button, all sorts of things. I would, if I was doing this again, check the box on the scale of the text, because, hey, we might be able to make out, yeah, something 6 digits. 1 million might be a stretch. 1 million's not going to cut it. So, sorry, if you have less than 1 million subscribers, you're going to need to remake this preset and check one more box to scale that down. But for everyone else, that is how you do that. It's super cool. And again, this is about as basic as we can keep it. Again, we designed that some simple animation, and hey, you can update this every video as you go. It's super cool. And what's also super cool, again, this is all just that dot setting text file. You can share text files very easily. You could open up a Google Docs and even paste all that plain text code, or you could just email that dot setting file back and forth. You could go through the process of packaging it up into a DRFX file, mostly for easier installation. In the newest update, DRFX files, you just double click on them and it installs them. You don't need to open up any new folders or anything like that. It's super exciting. There are people making cool things like this and selling them right now. And the market for that kind of thing is still very young. I am working right now on my first paid product, which will be a pack of text presets. I've given away things up to this point, but it's time. I'm putting together something for to be a paid product. I'm super excited about that. But any of you can get involved in that right now. Again, like, you need a way for people to find you and different things like that. Hey, side note, you should, if you're interested in Resolve, in any corner of Resolve, there are many different corners of Resolve. The Resolve community on YouTube is still fairly new, and it's growing in exciting ways. When I got started, this sort of preset stuff was like really just emerging, and this before it got nearly as powerful as it is now. And I've sort of like chased that as it's grown, but Resolve is just going to keep developing as well. There's space for some cool for some cool creators to come into the Resolve space. So if you're interested in that, maybe look into making Resolve content. Plenty of people. Oh my gosh, this face. Plenty of people out there to help. And if you were following along, it might have been a little fast. You can always watch the VOD. Or, hey. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.